Hi, good evening all of you. I am Nishant and I am going to talk about yet another work of Hermann Hesse. This time it is Narcissus and Goldmund. It is one of a major triumph by Hermann Hesse and one of the most lyrically intense novel. So lyrically intense that it doesn't often render itself to easy translation. Okay, so before we start, let me talk about the utilitarian approach. So the utilitarian approach of this novel is that those who are looking for a course in creative writing, those who are running here and there for this or that creative writing program, those who have collected various paraphernalia of creative writing, my one-stop solution to them is that please stop all that, throw away all such paraphernalia and kindly read this book. This book will do wonders to you insofar as only the utility of creative writing section is concerned. Now, but the more aesthetic and the sublime approach. So please understand that this video is neither a review nor an analysis. Okay, this video is a sheer gratitude to Hermann Hesse for writing, for introducing the world to this beautiful writing, and sheer gratitude to my English language teacher, Dr. Mukul Dikshit, who I guess some 10 or 12 years ago, when I met him, he introduced me to, I asked him a list of various writers and he introduced me to one German novelist, and that is he, the man Hermann Hesse. And while he was simply introducing me to this writer, he was not simply introducing me, he was changing the course of my life. He was changing the complete frame of reference through which I examine the rest of my life for years and years and years to come. So a whole paradigmatic change will happen, as it has happened to me after reading this book, provided if you have the sagacity, if you have the patience to read it and go through it, okay, in a proper way. Now coming back to this book, what this book is all about. So Narcissus and Goldmund, as the name itself signifies, is a story of two individuals, and the plot is set in a medieval Germany in a monastery where Narcissus was a senior student. Although he was very logical, he was very disciplined, okay, but the moment Goldmund came, both of them became aware of their opposite. So here Narcissus and Goldmund are two opposite characters cast, okay, in tandem opposition to each other. So there are two ways through which this can be viewed. Either you can view that Narcissus and Goldmund are two opposite poles, two dichotomous poles in a man's life itself, like flesh and spirit, intellect and wisdom, rationality and poetry, or you can view them as individual characters who are in constant conflict with each other, but not conflict in the usual sense of the term, but conflict in sense of the term in order to transcend these conflict and go beyond it. Okay, one more thing that strikes me curious about this novel is that like any other work of Hermann Hesse, this novel talks intensely about life, death and transience. Episode by episode, chapters by chapters, event by event, this novel will take you over the course of a year, a wanderer's life. Here Goldmund is a wanderer and Narcissus was a monk who was following the life of a celibate scholar to a monkish extent. Okay, so this novel will take you through the years and years of journey that Goldmund undertook in order to find himself. And no wonder this novel talks about the themes that that engulfed Hermann Hesse, or that engaged Hermann Hesse throughout his life. So this novel is a story of a wanderer's life, primarily Goldmund, and how Narcissus was placed in that setting. So Narcissus represents order, I again repeat, while Goldmund represents chaos. Narcissus represents rationality, philosophy, while Goldmund represents wisdom, poetry. While Narcissus represents logic, Goldmund represents storytelling. So it is a conflicting version between two polar opposites, between flesh and spirit, between yin and yang, between Apollonian and Dionysian, a theme that Narcissus and Goldmund alludes to. So yeah, coming back to again the main plot of the story of the novel. So it so happened that Goldmund arrived from somewhere in Germany to this monastery where Narcissus was already a senior student, and they both became a good friend. But finally somehow Goldmund realized that this monkish discipline, this life of leading a life of a celibate monk, and knowing himself or getting closer to his own soul or getting closer to the reality of the nature through the way of Christ or through the way of monks, okay, is not something that Goldmund is cut out to be. So Goldmund must follow his own path. Goldmund must follow his path of the senses, the path of worldly pleasures, the path of experience rather than the path of rationalism. And then Hesse takes us through this beautiful journey that Goldmund embarks upon in this novel over a episode of several decades. So reading this novel is not only a process of awakening within oneself, but also it is like going to be a vicarious experience of Goldmund's wandering through ages and ages and through various ups and downs and turmoils and humdrums and monotony and ecstasy of life. Having said so, I mean to say that, you know, Hesse dealt very beautifully the issue of the transience quality of life, the fleeting, the vanishing quality of life, through the issue of, say for instance, the wilting away of flowers, people passing away through plague, or people dying in some kind of pestilence, war, disease, and dying a natural death as well. So this novel, if not anything, will help you look or ponder over the fleeting or the ephemeral quality of life. Okay, it will help you reflect at the caducity of life in a more deeper, in a more intense way, which otherwise you would not have done. One more theme that, you know, that encompasses this novel is the return to the primordial mother, because Goldmund was always haunted by the image of his mother. He arrived in the monastery because her mother died, and his father supposed that her mother has committed some kind of sin, and Goldmund must go through the process of atonement in order to overcome that sin. And then Goldmund was constantly haunted by the image of mother, be it the images of his lovers that he has encountered through the journey of you know, various phases of his life, be it Lydia, be it Master Nicola's daughter, be it you know, the daughter of the counts that he has encountered, or be it the final Mother Earth. So in the end, Goldmund returns back to the Mother Earth, which means the primordial mother, as is alluded to, while Narcissus lives a life of monkish discipline. But at the end, Hermann Hesse alludes that Goldmund somehow was able to attain, or was able to you know the meaning of this overall existence and the purpose of his existence a little better than what Narcissus did. So even though Narcissus followed a life of a monk with a kind of very strenuous discipline, emphasizing heavily on the study of theology, logic, philosophy, and Christ teaching, okay, but still Goldmund, when he came back again to meet Narcissus, was a little more wiser, was a little more sagacious, was a little more awakened, was a little more close to nature than what Narcissus would have dreamt of. And no wonder. I mean, this is one theme that engages Hermann Hesse in all of his writings, and more so in the writing of this novel, that is Narcissus and Goldmund. Surprisingly, this novel contains an element of not only existential philosophy but also a higher degree of romanticism, as I told in my first video that you might consider Hermann Hesse as an heir to Goethe. This also contains an attempt to imitate Plato through his Platonic dialogues. This also contains an element of fairy tale quality. This also contains element of Jungian and Freudian psychology, more Jungian than Freudian. But what surprises me is that this is a surprisingly easier read as compared to his other novels, say for instance Demian or Steppenwolf, which I will be talking about in my next video. Okay, so if not for anything else, this novel has to be read in order to, if you are a person to whom the transience quality of life, the transcendence of life and death, the conflicting unity of the polar opposites, the lyrical intensity of a novel suffused with or tossed in the philosophy of life, more so existentialism, attracts you, this is the novel for you. Now let me read some of the quotes by Hermann Hesse, which I think will add up to your curiosity. Okay, so that you can also look into the lyrical intensity of Hermann Hesse writing. So see, there's a soliloquy going on in the mind of Goldmund, and then Goldmund thinks somewhere during the episode of a novel, when the novel progresses, that we fear death, we shudder at life's instability, we grieve to see the flowers wilt and the leaves fall, and in our hearts we know that we too are transitory and will soon disappear. When artists create pictures and thinkers search of laws and formulate thoughts, it is in order to salvage something from the great dance of death, to make something last longer than we do. Now read the second, let's listen to the second quote which I have chosen for this video of mine. So here Narcissus speaks to Goldmund, realizing that Goldmund and he are completely opposite to each other. So here Narcissus speaks to Goldmund that natures of your kind with strong delicate senses, the soul-oriented, the dreamers, the poets, lovers, always superior to us creature of the mind. You take your being from your mothers, you live fully. You are endowed with the strength of love, the ability to feel. Whereas we creatures of reason, we don't live fully. We live in an arid land, even though we often seem to guide and rule you. Yours is the plenitude of life, the sap of the fruit, the garden of passion, the beautiful landscape of art. Your home is the earth. Ours is the world of ideas. You are in a danger of drowning in the world of senses. Ours is the danger of suffocating in an airless void. You're an artist, I'm a thinker. You sleep at your mother's breast. I wake in the desert. For me the sun shines, for you the moon and the stars. Imagine the lyrical intensity, the way in which Hesse exposits the dichotomy of everyday life. Okay, he talks of the everydayness. Still it is the lyrical intensity of Hesse that converts this everydayness into a intense poetic journey. One more quote that I would like to take up for this video is that what Goldmund speaks to himself in a form of soliloquy. There is no escape. You can't be a vagabond and an artist and still be a solid citizen, a wholesome, upstanding man. You want to get drunk, so you have to accept the hangover. You say yes to the sunlight and pure fantasies, so you have to say yes to the flayed and the nausea. Everything is within you, gold and mud, happiness and pain, laughter of childhood and the apprehension of death. Say yes to everything, shirk nothing. Don't lie to yourself. You're not a solid citizen. You're not a Greek, you're not harmonious or the master of yourself. You're a bird of the storm. Let it storm, let it drive you. How much have you lied? 1,000 times. Even in your poems and books, you have played the harmonious man, the wise man, the happy, the enlightened man. In the same way, men attacking in war have played heroes while their bowels twitched. My God, what a poor ape, what a fencer in the mirror man is, particularly the artist, particularly myself, the Goldmund. So guys, I hope these 3 quotes are, more than enough to help you delve into, the nuances of this book, that is Narcissus and Goldmund. I again repeat, this is going to be, if not the most, one of the most lyrically intense book that you would have read in your life. Kindly go for it. Okay, and the feeling after reading this book is something that is not so transient. Okay, that will linger on. The feeling to look a little more deeper into the nature, the feeling to stand by and look at a wilted flower. Okay, the feeling to stand by and look at dog for long and long. What Whitman said, Walt Whitman, that I stand and look at animals for long and long. The feeling to stop, pause, reflect and contemplate. So all these feelings are going to linger on for quite some length of time, if at all you still take the risk to read this. So kindly go ahead. Thank you, all of you.